Brand Insider Summit, D2C. I've been told that some people are still in the lobby bar from last night. And it went kind of late. My wife and I were asleep at like 9, so I'm well rested. But don't worry. I do have 2 things I'd like to say here this morning. One, today is the announcement or the launch of all these new streaming services. There's like 20 streaming services now, something like that. What's that? Yeah, Disney Plus, others. Apple's got one. Everybody's got one. MediaPost has one too. And ours is free. All right, you just have to go to our website, go to the conference area of our website, and every presentation that anybody has made here is right there free for streaming now, and all of the past shows. In a way, you don't have to ever come to a show again, because we've actually said and done everything by now. Don't take that seriously. The second thing is I've been checking the weather. I go to weather.gov because you can't get to anything at weather.com. I hope they're not here. Through all of they're naming every storm and all that. Weather.gov says we're only going to get 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch today. So, you guys and ladies who are playing golf on the championship course, that's almost nothing, right, John? Nothing. Okay, so I hope you do get out there, and we do have, get out into the activities just where they probably have rain slickers and things over at the lobby to help you out. In any event, enough about those things. We're happy to have MediaPost presenting this morning. They've been a sponsor of ours for the last year and a half, 2 years. We appreciate that very much. And you're going to hear this morning from a gentleman over here named Louis Gersh, who I've just met. Well, I've met him before, but greeted him again. And I asked him about this title, which you'll find on the little card that goes on your table there. It's called Chief Stamp Licker. So in any event, I said, you must either be the CEO and the guy who does everything, or you're actually a guy who licks stamps. So in any event, Louis I think is going to tell you the story. So come on up, Louis, and get us kicked off here.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Hope you had a good time at the lobby bar last night. I was there in the afternoon and ran into one of my investors, which was slightly awkward while Artie and I were having a glass of wine and planning some stuff. So yeah, we did go with the title Chief Stamp Licker, and there's kind of a funny story with it when we founded MediaPost. So for those who don't know, MediaPost, we invented programmatic direct mail, which a lot of marketers were telling us is the first new channel since search and social. And we had this idea early on of going out to Sears and trying to do a programmatic catalog. And the idea was to have them allow us to do a case study so we could promote that we reinvented the legendary Sears catalog as programmatic direct mail. Myself and this woman, Jacqueline, our first saleswoman, went into the meeting, and there were 2 people from Sears. I think the combined age was like 372 years old between these 2 people in their direct mail area, because we were really targeting digital people. And my first card said Chief Paper Selection Officer, because we had gone through about the performance would be high. Let's go really high-end paper, really high-end stock, fine finish, everything else, make it really nice, as opposed to like crappy-looking junk mail. And the guy who we were meeting with, a guy and a woman, the guy looked at my card, and he said, is this your title? And I said, yes. And he said, Chief Paper Selection Officer. I said, yes, sir. And he said, is this really what you do? And I said, well, no, I'm the founder and CEO, but that's just the title. And he put down his glasses, looked at me with sternly, and said, Louis, paper selection and direct mail is not a joke. It was like, well, somebody's wound a little tight, right? It was like, oh boy. So we changed it to Chief Stamp Licker, and it stuck. That's how we got to it. So I'm going to walk you through some of the stuff about the category we created, but also some of the research we found. We found some really interesting stuff that actually changed a lot of my perspective on digital too. And we do only sell to digital. We're programmatic first. So I think you'll find it interesting. Tried not to just do stuff about MediaPost, more about what we learned and be able to share it. So first, a little about me. Just so you know, I've been in the space a little over 20 years. I founded a JV with AOL and Omnicom in the mid-90s. And after I sold that company, what we did there was invent or pioneered a lot of what became behavioral targeting and retargeting. I sold the company and then founded a venture fund in the space, built a large portfolio all around behavioral targeting, retargeting, and a lot of the early stages of programmatic, and then left to found MediaPost, which seemed odd to a lot of people. Our team of what we have on our board, our investors, and our employees are from some of the largest in digital that have been successful around the space. And in fact, 14 of my CEOs from the portfolio are investors in MediaPost. You'll know a lot of the companies like Chango, TapAd, Fetchback, Sailthrough, Mass Relevance, iSocket, Movable Ink, Rubicon, Retail Next, blah, blah, blah. 65 companies that I had invested in around the space. A lot of them are now involved with us here, which is really fun, except they get to beat me up about where's their investor report now. So we look at this space and we say, would you rather serve impressions or inspirations? And there's a reason. It might sound a little odd when we're talking about something like direct mail, but direct mail is actually a brand communication of physical media into somebody's home, right? And when you attach the retargeting to it, something special happens. It's not junk mail. Junk mail is irrelevant mail. What we do is relevant and behaviorally targeted mail, run of one. So the thesis behind this, and this goes back through some of my other ventures, we call transactional media. And the transaction element here is the signal. So a consumer on the web can evidence what we call user-driven segmentation, right, by engaging and initiating a dialogue with a brand or a brand's product area. If the brand can discern the meaning out of those signals online, then they can continue that dialogue back to the consumer on a one-to-one basis, leveraging content to drive them to commerce, right? That's a lot of what we did when I founded the JV with AOL and Omnicom in the mid-90s. And this was before the terms behavioral targeting or retargeting. And it's a lot of what we still use today, mainly because what we learned is, and what you'll see, at the brand side, you have to keep efficiency and efficacy and harmony, right? And at the consumer side, you need relevancy and respect, also in harmony. And when these things get slightly out of whack, you need to course correct as a marketer, as a brand, or as a MarTech provider, or it really goes not in a great direction. Like, who thinks all of digital ads today are incredibly respectful? Like, nobody's hand, right? I think digital is kind of, in a way, a lot of it, especially free-range display, has become the new junk mail from the 1970s. But here's what we do, and there's a self-policing here. When we look at the two channels, something that's interesting first, you have the two largest direct marketing channels in history, direct mail and digital, right? And what's interesting is both, over the course of about a 25-year span, grew from about $5 billion in market size and a few hundred providers to about $70 billion and thousands of providers. And what happened is you have all these point solutions that don't talk to each other. Things became very disrespectful to the consumer. Things became sometimes overly relevant. Same with direct mail, right? People say, why do we get this junk, or how did they know this about me? Same thing's happening in digital, right? It's happening right now today. That's not good. So what we did when we put the two together is it solves actually a lot of the problems of both, while it also leverages some of the biggest power of both, right? You have, with going to direct mail, you have to have an address, so it's fraud-free. Going into somebody's mailbox, everybody has to check their mail, sort their mail. We call it survive the sort and go in the short stack. If you go in the short stack, you're in the game. Well, you can't do that. That means it's 100% viewable, right? There's a lot of things here that most people don't realize on regular direct mail. It's been the largest ad spend next to TV for about 40 years, and it's the highest response rate of any media you can buy. And that was with junk mail. Now you attach that real-time behavioral signal, solve all these problems, solve problems for digital, it gets extremely powerful. So what we found in doing this, marketers started saying, you created a new channel. It's the first new channel since search and social, which was great. Like that's an enormous opportunity for us and for everybody else trying to get into the space. But what did that mean? Why? How is that dissected? How does it behave differently I mean, yes, it's physical media to home. It's not on a small screen. There's a lot of differences that are obvious, but when it came to performance, that was the issue, because performance seemed, and this isn't to pat ourselves, was too good to be true to a lot of the marketers because it behaved very differently and much more powerfully. So we started working with the marketers, and this leads to our research that we wanted to share today. And we had to define a simple way. CMOs were saying, how do I talk to my team, both a boss in the C-suite or on the marketing team or across the teams? How do I talk to them simply and say, why is this so powerful? Why does it work? So we did a listening tour with a lot of CMOs from some of the Fortune 50 brands, biggest in the country and the world, down to upstart DNVBs with really innovative new teams. And this is what we came up with. We call it 90-90-90. It's our construct. And we did this with the marketers. So the first is that 90% of actionable one-to-one intent data we believe is now online. I don't think most people would debate that. 20 years ago, if I wanted to know Jane Smith was going to buy a BMW, the only way I know that is if Jane Smith walks on the car lot, chase her across the asphalt, and get her name and number. Now, 90% of that data is online in some way, shape, or form. The middle 90 is that 90% of meaningful and higher purchase decisions actually happen at and in the home, right? And devices aren't always great for that, even though they reside there, right? Nobody ever taped a banner ad to their fridge and said, honey, is that the right one? We'll get to other examples, right? So the decisions are made there, and digital's great for different parts of the funnel, but not always the right amount of the path to purchase. And the last 90 is that 90% of purchases happen in the physical world. And that's just a fact. It's 90 to 92% actually. If you can get heavy in the 10% that's just e-commerce, you're doing great. Look at Amazon. But for a lot, most of brand sales are in the physical world. So when we started applying this construct with the marketers, we looked at setting it up visually like this and then thinking about the channels. And if you're a digital ad, what we found, talking with the marketers, looking at the research we've done and they've done, getting 90% of that one-to-one intent data, that's what digital ads are for, right? I mean, if you can't use behavioral, nobody's doing run-of-site display ads anymore, I don't think. So it's all about the behavioral targeting and the retargeting, and it scores really high. Digital ads actually activating a meaningful and higher decision at home, not so good. Search a little more around discovery. Social's good for engagement, continuity. Email's about continuity, and CRM. Display retargeting is more about reminding somebody to complete a task of a decision they've already made, right? That's why it doesn't get a lot of lift. So we looked at that and said, okay, that seems to be where it ranks with the marketers. And then worse, digital ads really don't drive people to the physical world. That's just not what they're built for. They're great for other things, just not for that part. So you have that. And then if we look at direct mail, which is the largest ad spend next to TV again, you have almost no one-to-one intent data, right? Not so good there. Only about 5% of direct mail can really activate that decision at home, because 95% is irrelevant to when somebody's in market for a good or service. You can't activate a decision with irrelevant media, or Wanamaker would have said 100% of it works, right? It's just not possible. But the big win there is you can go to 100% of purchase channels with direct mail. With physical media, it can drive you with a call to action to desktop web, mobile web, in-app, mail order, telephone order, which are still big in some verticals, like cruise lines and travel or nonprofit, or to physical retail, like a retail store, bank branch, car lot, et cetera. So direct mail has the big win at the other end. And that was interesting. We were talking, especially this one CMO and chief innovation officer at one of the largest banks in the world that we work with. If you overlay digital and direct mail in this construct, you have the two largest direct marketing channels in history that are really high at one end or the other, kind of low in the middle, and actually lower at the opposite end. And we said, whoa, how does this fit? Programmatic direct mail actually captures all three. We get 90% of that one-to-one intent data online. 90% of what we send is relevant at the household level when they're in market for a good or service. That is like totally different than anything else that's shown up at home. And from it, you can go to 100% of purchase channels. That's a way to think about how powerful this can be as a new channel from working with the marketers. And the next, and this gets towards, and then we'll show you some of the examples. We kind of discovered now, working with the marketers, and we're doing a six-figure research study with a number of our brands on this right now. And this will be big on what I think we're finding. It's this new consumer path to purchase. It's changed a lot in about 20 to 25 years. And like I was saying before, there's some things in digital that work really well for it, and there's some things in direct mail that can work well. There's a lot that doesn't, and we're figuring out why. So first, in our 90-90-90 construct, we went to prove that middle 90 of 90% of meaningful and higher purchase decisions are made at home, and it was true. We used a woman, Devorah Rogers. I'm not sure if people here have heard of the Zero Moment of Truth study that was very famous that Google did 10 or 12 years ago. It started with Procter & Gamble announced what they called the first moment of truth, which was standing in a store in an aisle, that's where people would make the decision. That was their moment of truth, right? And then somebody came out with a second moment of truth, which was when you bring the product home, you build a relationship with your brand. And then Google had this idea with search, which was true, that there's a zero moment of truth. When people initiate a search, they actually begin the association to purchase the brand. So we looked and said, where are the decisions made, first off, because we realized, wait a minute, you don't go from a search to a store. You actually consider for a while, and if 90% of those are done at home, that changes the context of how a brand should want to communicate with an individual, especially if you're overloaded on just digital. So we did the research on the middle 90, and it proved true that 90%, we have an extensive amount of other research behind this. It's up on our website, I believe, right, Artie? If everybody wants it, at MediaPost, or we can send it to you, just email. So Devorah Rogers and her team did this, proved the middle 90. We're now working with her and her partner, Rebecca, who did the Zero Moment of Truth, and we're gonna dive deeper. First, we did this, and what we found was about 88% of these decisions are made at home. We just round it and say 90. I think the actual number is 88.7, but it fits a little better. And then what we also found was how many are in consult with somebody else, and that was fascinating. Most people don't share a digital ad with a friend, a family member, a spouse, a child, a coworker, and say, what do you think? Is this the right one? That's a problem. If all these decisions are made at home and most are made in consult with somebody else, and the media that's trying to activate the decision isn't really shared, that's a problem. So we looked, and this is what we're getting through now in our research. This is a bit of a preview. This is kind of astounding. We believe what we're finding is that in the 90s, there were about 400 million meaningful and higher purchase decisions flowing through American households every month. So if you're a marketer, how many apply to you demographically, geographically, how many people are in market at any given time? That was a pretty good number. But what's happened is it's exploded, 1.5 to 2 billion today. And it's changed the path of purchase, and here's why. What we looked at and what we're finding is, first, on search, that was a key part, and Google's Zero Moment of Truth, which they were so far ahead in seeing. There's about 1 million searches or so in the mid-90s. Today, there's 2.2 trillion, right? They aren't all for products, of course, lots of things. But the volume of how much people initiate a search when they're thinking about a purchase has exploded since then, including in CPG. CPG back then was about 20% of search. The volume of those searches has gone up dramatically. But secondly, the advent and ubiquity of mobile devices. That means people can initiate a search and a consideration anytime, anywhere they want. They also communicate with other people through those devices when they're in consult on that purchase, right? So you have the amount of decisions exploding, and now we're finding it creates this paradox of choice, right? People do a search for thinking about a product or something they want to buy. They're presented with too many options, right? And they have to consider it. So what happens? The content sourced from the 90s to today exploded by about 5x, right? So think about back then, you would look at maybe a newspaper, a magazine, or a catalog. Today, 15 to 25 online sites are consulted, from review sites to ranking sites to the brand sites to product, everything, right? That's not easy for a consumer to work through. And what does that do? it elongates the consideration weeks. How long are they considering a product? So where an average meaningful purchase might have been 2 to 4 weeks in the 90s, it's now more like 10 to 12, it might be higher, right? Because they have to consider more options. That forces it to happen longer. Another thing, the number of people consulted has also exploded. It was 1 to 2 people in the 90s before mobile devices made it ubiquitous and easy to text or instant message or email, et cetera. I don't think most people do a voice call much anymore, except maybe with your parents. But it went from 1.2 people in the mid-90s to about 8 to 10 today. So think about your digital ad again. How are you going to take that digital display ad or video and easily have it help somebody navigate multiple people, especially even people on posting on social? Thinking about buying this chair, what do you think? We've all seen that, right? Consumer behavior's changed a lot. And lastly, this spectrum of considered purchase, economic consideration has gone down so much lower to lower dollar items, right? Where emotional risk has gone so much higher. And the reason emotional risk has gone higher is people have invested so much more time and effort in the consideration process and that paradox of choice, as well as communicated with their cohort of people they've exposed this purchase to, that matters to people in their brains, right? So you have, we worked with energy bar companies. A box of energy or granola bars used to be absolutely in-aisle purchase, first moment of truth in the store. We found 2 to 6 weeks consideration of people doing multiple searches, multiple reviews, communicating with multiple people, try and make sure. I mean, if you've ever done a search for even just granola bars, right? Do you want chewy, crunchy, nuts, no nuts, gluten-free, organic, blah, blah, blah. Not easy, and you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to have to figure out what the right one is again, and you don't want the waste. So you have all these things as examples. That's changed. And so what happens with what we found, some marketing channels work great for it, others don't. What we do, and why we think this is what we figured out, we process about 10,000 data events online for every one piece of mail rendered and assigned to a household. We look at the behavioral activity, the product segment info, address and identity on our own graph. We go to actual postal, not an IP address, and making a guess who somebody is. We can do the geo-targeting and look at the campaign goal. Is it drive to store, higher AOV? Dynamically render the appropriate piece of programmatic direct mail as a run of one per household per campaign. So 90% of it is relevant when they're in market for the good or service. They can share that. It lasts through, it sits on their kitchen counter or their coffee table or goes in her purse to go to work. During that consideration cycle, can be easily shared with lots of people, right? Via showing it at work or at home or taking a picture and forwarding it. It solves a lot of these problems. And we didn't set out thinking it would solve that. Being honest, we're not Monday morning quarterbacking. This was research working with marketers and working with the brands on why it's working so well. And what we found is it's significantly higher response rate from the marketer's performance. And this helped explain why. And that's our big thing. We geek out on like the why part. How does this work and why? We have lots of case studies on the site. These are all actual. These aren't cherry picked, and they're not like little slivers of campaigns with minimum data. We put them up. You're welcome to help debunk them or whatever. We've gone through with marketers quite a bit on them in different categories. But if you notice, they're kind of meaningful and higher purchases or things with emotional consideration that really matters. These aren't for just a task or utility or display ad retargeting like Criteo, just saying you've already decided, just blast you with the display ads and get you to get it done. There's certain places where it works, and we almost always go after lift. That became our metric with the marketers, saying if we're activating a meaningful and higher purchase decision at home, it should show significant lift, right? And it should produce incremental return on ad spend. Happens to be what a lot of marketers are looking at today and demanding. We just happen to fit in the right spot at the right time with that for them. Others, a few more incremental ROAS, yeah. So it's pretty cool, and we're still learning a lot about it, working with these research leaders as well as the brands on doing it, and having a lot of fun learning about it. So that's why, going back to it, we always ask, would you rather serve impressions or inspirations, right? A consumer wakes up one day and says, I'm inspired to, remodel my kitchen or buy some new clothes or join a gym. They're inspired to do it. They'll think about the brands that inspire them to do it. Like if it's athletics, think about Nike, right? Very inspirational brand. So we look at it and say you have a chance to communicate on physical media into their home and help inspire them to choose your brand, right, in their consideration process. And that consideration process has radically changed. So I hope that was interesting and helpful. We weren't just trying to do just a pitch about MediaPost. Let's say we've been learning a lot, and we geek out on it. Hopefully you guys found it interesting too this morning. Thanks. Any questions? Open to? We'll be around. Thanks.
Louis, thank you. That was awesome. Any questions for Louis before we let him off the hook here? Kind of an interesting angle on things here. Anyone? Do you have a group of people here or team?
We do.
Yeah.
Sorry, Daniel and Corey over here with us, already on the video in the back.
All right, awesome. Video, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so grab Louis if you have questions. Looking around, anyone? No? Okay, very cool. Louis, thank you very much. That was awesome, and again, a unique twist on things. So thank you. A big round of applause for Louis and MediaPost. Thank you. Mr. Smith, what do you want to do here? 3 minutes. All right, we're going to do 3 minutes, according to Mr. Smith. Refresh your coffees, and we'll be right back to you shortly with the rest of the program. Thanks.
All right, if everybody could grab their seat, we're going to start up with day 2 of the Direct-to-Consumer Brand Insider Summit. So grab your seat, grab your coffee. A couple of quick notes. Many of you, especially those of you among the D2C brands who are new to MediaPost, but drilling into a lot of different topics, especially platform and channels that are coming up that I think might be relevant to people in the room and at least colleagues back at the home office, because you're using a lot of performance and direct marketing, are the two that we've done the last 15 years in Valley, and that's our Email Insider Summit and our Search and Performance Insider Summit. These are two of our flagship summits that we've been doing the longest. They've accumulated some loyal followers over the years, but they're particularly relevant to you. We're doing Email Insider Summit on December 8th through the 11th. We have brands like Crow coming, Jack in the Box, Samsung, Purple Mattress, Mattel, Land's End. But I'm always looking for, and this is one of the great parts about having incorporated the direct-to-consumer shows. I love getting the direct-to-consumer brands involved in some of these events where a lot of legacy brands have been coming forever. You bring a fresh perspective, not only energy, which I think we've already seen in this room, but a lot of insight, performance marketing, and especially about infrastructure and the ways you guys are organizing data and leveraging it and executing on it internally. There are a lot of the legacy brands that are really interested in hearing from you. We do still have some space on the email summit. It fills up very quickly, but if some of you are interested, if you have channel specialists in the messaging group who might be interested in it, let me know, or Kevin Massa, who also runs the VIP program for that event, let him know. Also, right after it, the Search and Performance Insider Summit, which is focused on search, but all aspects of performance marketing. We have brands like HP, Geico are coming to that, Home Depot, and again, Delta Faucet. We're always looking for direct-to-consumer brands to fold into that group because you have a lot to offer there and a lot of insight and perspective. Today, we're going to be focusing a lot on deepening the value and the relationship with the customer, with developing and broadening the product mix, and increasing lifetime value of customers. And I can't think of a better brand to bring up here than what has become a quick friend of ours, the Farmer's Dog. And, well, I'm going to let Brett talk about the model for it. It's such a unique product and such a unique take on direct-to-consumer marketing. But one of the things that they've really excelled at, and have shown here on this stage several times already over the last couple of years, is the ways in which they have baked into their model a deep relationship with the customer, highly personalized from the first contact with customers through the product, through the delivery, through the interactions. And also, one of the things that Brett is also going to talk about is the ways in which they baked in a model for sustainability, how from the beginning they were really aimed at profitability and understanding the unit cost of everything that they were doing. Brett is one of the co-founders of the Farmer's Dog. He's going to tell you what that company is like and what it's about. He's also a former stand-up comic, so we may be entertained. And interviewing him is someone new to MediaPost, Lisa Singer. She's joined the programming team in the last few months, but she has a long career as a reporter, as an expert in social media, but also as a reporter for outlets like E!, CNN, and many others. Please welcome Lisa and Brett.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. Everyone's up from last night. Well, Brett, first of all, I think a lot of people, I mean, your company to me is amazing. It's exactly what I look for. But for those who don't know, please just tell us what Farmer's Dog is.
Pretty simple. We make real, fresh food for dogs. That's, I just think, the simplest way that I could put it. And I'll give you a little bit more detail as to why that's really, really important as we go through this conversation.
Well, it was definitely a labor of love. And I think that's what makes you guys a little bit more special than others that are maybe out there in your space. Tell us about your story and how it became.
Yeah, this is like a truly genuine company founding story. My dog Jada, she was sick for the first 2 years that I had her, and I couldn't find the solution to her stomach problems. I tried every food on the market. I started to notice this pattern of veterinarians recommending that I feed her like a home-cooked food, like a chicken and rice. And, well, actually, before I continue, how many people here have dogs? Wow, I'm in the right room. This is amazing. Okay, I have a gift for all of you who have dogs, or even if you have friends who have dogs or family, remind me at the end, and I'll give you guys this gift. So anyway, my dog, she wasn't doing well. I noticed this pattern of veterinarians recommending that I home cook for her. And every time I did, she was completely cured. And that was when I realized that she wasn't actually a sick dog. It was the food that had been making her sick for all these years. So I started to wonder, I was like, what's going on in pet food? Why have we been conditioned for decades to believe that dogs should be eating highly processed brown balls every meal of their life. So I looked into the industry, and what I found was like extremely alarming. It is completely unregulated. If you look at the rule book that this company AFCO has given the FDA to actually regulate the industry, you'd be appalled. There are rules like, for instance, what natural means on packaging. It could either mean like actually like from the earth or not from the earth, and completely synthetic essentially. I mean, you could ferment it, you could put it through hydrolysis, you could extrude it. There's so many processes that you're allowed to do to food and still call it natural. And that is like the tiniest little example. I can go on for days talking about why pet food is really scary. Anyway, after learning what I learned about the pet food industry, I realized that I just couldn't trust any big brand to feed my dog. I just found that there was not a single brand out there that I could rely on or felt comfortable feeding my dog every day. And when I realized there was no brand out there, I decided to build one. And that's who we are. We're the brand that I wish had existed for my dog.
Well, it's just, I mean, I had a dog about at the same time going through the same issues, and I was making fresh food and doing vegetables for him, and he thrived and became healthy. Only I didn't make $1 million business with it, so otherwise it would be switched. So, like, how did you know, it's one thing, a lot of people have ideas, and actually probably most of you in the room do something about it. You have that entrepreneurial spirit. How did you get started, and why did you know what you were doing was unique and wasn't out there?
Well, I looked. I really was hoping that somebody had already done this so I could just buy food and go back to my life. Yeah, I know. I wish you had just done it. Yeah, well, I think the real thing that I was thinking about was everybody loves their dog, and everybody already thinks that they're giving their dog the healthiest diet. And what they don't realize is that there's essentially just no such thing as good dog food. If it's brown, round, burnt brown balls, there's just no such thing as it being good. At the end of the day, these products are all undifferentiated with different packaging. Brilliant marketing, horrible products. And when I realized that was just the status quo, it was just the perfect opportunity because, like I said, people already think they're giving their dogs amazing food, which means that they are willing to make a change if you just give them just simple information. And for what we do all the time, and our marketing messaging is really simple. We just say, feed your dog real food, and we'll show them a picture of kibble and show them a picture of our food, and it's just obvious to them. It doesn't really take much convincing or education.
Well, even, I mean, the pet food industry, or just the pet industry, is always increasing in terms of spending. I think it's like $96 billion they expect for 2020. So you got into the right industry. But because of that, there's a popularity in your space. So you, though, are not only growing, but you're also attracting attention. You recently had, what, like $30 million investment. Why are they going to you? Why you rather than your competition?
Well, our competitors have have definitely raised some capital. So I don't actually even refer to our like direct competitors, the people that are also, trying to make dogs healthy. We look at them as allies, really, because for us, trying to steal market share from them doesn't really do anything for us. We're looking at the big guys. We're looking at the Purinas and Blue Buffaloes and these companies out there that are saying that they're making a really good product, but they aren't. So in regards to competition, we welcome as many companies as possible to pop up doing what we're doing, because all it does is validate the space, it validates what we're doing, and it validates it to pet parents, which is most important to us. We have Pet Plate in the audience here who, some of you might think they're a competitor. We really don't think so. If I met somebody in the street that told me that they were feeding their dog Pet Plate, I'd say, amazing. But if you told me you were feeding your dog Blue Buffalo, you'd get an earful.
Well, and as you said, I think nowadays people are, millennials especially, they're not having kids and they're having pets for their kids. So they want to feed them fresh food. And so it really seemed like a space for you to really get into, and it was very much lacking, especially when you're talking about how most pet food has always been made. So I guess walk us through that, because you have seen growth, and that's a rarity, especially you guys, it's only been since, 2015, and you're seeing success. What do you credit that to, not only in terms of your, marketing plan, but just in terms of sustaining yourselves and not spending too much money. And that's something that a lot of people just starting out, they may be over.
The thing that we agreed upon, me and my co-founder Jonathan, was that the number one most important thing that we're going to do here is make dogs healthy. And starting a subscription, we're starting a new food that you really can't get anywhere else at that time. If we were to go out of business, these dogs are now stuck eating really bad food. So for us, we looked at it and we said, we need to create a business from day one that will be profitable immediately, where we never have to rely on outside capital, and we don't necessarily need to grow that fast. So something that we've always done is just kind of taken a second look. Every founder here, if we're all in marketing, we all get antsy, and we really just want to grow as fast as possible. And at the end of the day, it definitely feels good on your ego when you're growing that fast, but it's not always great for your business. So we built the company from day one where our unit economics were positive. At the end of the first month, we were cash flow positive. We were not burning anything. It was when we started to raise capital and we realized, okay, now we want to grow this business extremely fast, but we always model it out where we model it out for this is what it looks like if we run out of money in a year and a half. This is what it looks like if we never want to raise capital ever again. And we always have that plan, which now, even though we've raised a lot of capital, we're still constantly looking at that, always wondering, if there's a major recession and cash flow just dries up, we don't want to be stuck.
Well, in terms of even initially, as you said, you marketed as just bringing healthy food to your pets, to your dogs. But how has your maybe media plan changed or evolved since when you first started out and now as you're moving forward and as you continue to grow?
So when we started, we basically had no money. So the most important thing to us was retention. If we're gonna somehow get a customer in the door, we can't let them leave. We need to do everything we possibly can to give them the perfect experience. This might sound crazy, but I personally do not see how we don't have 100% retention, and that is just how our entire team thinks. If you're aiming for 50% retention, that's the best you're going to get. So we're aiming for 100. So that's basically been like the cornerstone of what's helped our growth. But then also just doing sorts of marketing where the costs are fixed. Like we knew that we were paying them. We just do a CPA model relationship, and that's how we grew our business for the first few years before we actually were able to raise capital and then do a ton of testing on every possible channel.
Well, it's funny, now I do see, and again, I wish I had known you were around a lot of the time, but I am seeing now that you television ads, and at what point did you jump to that? And are you seeing more success because of that, or is it still more where you're getting that word of mouth and looking for the influencers?
Yeah, well, we're doing everything. And so I guess my view is, I was very nervous when we started doing television because you're just kind of throwing, I don't know, when you start $500,000, $1 million, you're just kind of throwing it out there and hoping something happens. And we actually did see like amazing lift every time that one of our commercials airs in that location. We see amazing lift, and just having the mix of people seeing us. Well, I guess the way that I like to phrase it is, every person has a different channel that resonates with them. My father, if he sees an influencer talking about a product, he doesn't even know what's happening, right? But if he sees something like an Instagram advertisement, it doesn't really resonate with him. That's not the medium in which he was marketed to growing up. But when he sees a billboard with a company on it, or when he sees a company on a television commercial, all of a sudden, okay, this is a legitimate company. So giving people the opportunity to see us in the channel that resonates with them is really important. It's actually been amazing for us.
Do you find yourself then sort of balancing it through all channels, or is there one that works better for you, that you tend to go a little heavier?
Well, Facebook and Instagram is, that's kind of the easy one. We actually our Facebook and Instagram was completely shut off for 75% of last month. And we actually exceeded targets because all of our other channels, we had been testing channels, something that we've always been really disappear because they changed their algorithm, which obviously won't really affect Advertising stand is that cohort retaining? Is that even a channel worthwhile? You can get a lot of signups, but if they're all canceling, what's the point?
Right. Well, for you, as far as, I guess, tell us a little bit about your business in the sense you're seeing growth. How did it start off in terms of the amount of customers you were getting? And maybe you didn't retain them all, but you have retained a lot. How did maybe
Advertising. So we planned a small area of New York City, and then we raised capital, and that's when we stopped growth. After raising capital, we realized we wanted to build a business that was sustainable and that could scale to limitless capacity. So what we did was we invested in our supply chain of customers. I mean, our customers think we have like a very, very simple business because we want them to feel that way. We don't want them to see how complicated it is to have, I mean, for instance, every single one of our customers is a completely unique subscription. Everybody's getting a personalized, like custom delivery for them.
slides?
Regulated kitchen, we have a USDA inspector on we're cooking, throw it in your sink, and it's like a really cool little science project. This is our packs to feed and when it was made. The names, for utility, we realized that when we were first starting, we had 8 customers. We could only cook 1 time every 2 weeks, and we knew that if any of our customers overfed, they would run out of food, and we had no way to get them. We packaged it in a way where they had exactly how much. We realized like that's an
Overfeed. So a lot of heavy dogs.
yeah, 56 were lean, which is really scary. Since that are actually really important to us. One, it allows us to know where they live, about their dog. And dogs on our food, we know everything about 1 million dogs, which is really cool and an amazing opportunity for us to constantly improve and understand our dogs. So you filled the information about your dogs into our system. And then we will give you your customized feeding plan where you'll know, one, what recipes you could use for your dog, and then how much to feed your dog. And then you basically click confirm, and you never need to worry about your dog's nutrition ever again. Our technology knows exactly when you're gonna run out of food, and it will automatically trigger a fresh order to be prepared, packaged, frozen, and delivered to your home for the rest of your dog's life.
And everyone's always looking for data, and you have it built right in, in terms of for everyone to get it. So that's also, I'm sure, helps in terms of moving forward in marketing and knowing what's important, what people are needing out there.
Yeah, we're very lucky that we started that way.
Well, now, so you have this set up, and it's so personalized, but as you are growing, can you sustain that? Like, how can you go to scale with this amazing relationship with your customers? And that's always kind of the big problem. As businesses grow, it's hard to maintain that. How are you guys doing this?
So from like a customer experience standpoint, the technology that allows us to create this personalized experience, no matter how many dogs are on our food. It could be 90 million of the dogs in America. We could feed all of them with the technology that we have. It really becomes more complicated on the fulfillment side, where you're actually like packing boxes that are all unique. And luckily today there is robotics that could solve that. That will help us scale to like limitless capacity. In terms of the customer experience, like customer service side, that is the most important part of our business. I don't intend on ever outsourcing that. We have a 50-person, I think 50 people, customer experience team now. We're hiring like crazy. So if anybody knows anybody in Nashville, that's where our customer service office is. Please tell them to apply. They just have to be dog lovers and amazing people.
That's true. His office is filled with dogs.
Oh yeah.
Everyone brings their pet.
Yeah. The office is like unbelievable. Like culture, even outside, the dogs just make everything better. But the people are like also kind of like dogs, where they're just like really sweet, genuine human beings. So anyway, the customer experience, it's really important to us. Our CX team is essentially given the power to do what they feel is right. We tell them, like, treat each customer that you speak to as if they're our only customer, and if we lose them, that's the end of our business. And our customer experience team is just, they're like the most warm, like magical human beings. And sometimes we joke that maybe we should mess up everybody's like first or second box, because then they're pissed and they reach out to us, and then they get a moment of speaking to our CX team, and then they love us way more. Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you get a messed up box, speak to our CX team, you retain much longer. So something for us to think about.
Yeah, and that's a big difference, you know, in terms of, because as you said, I mean, I've dealt with a lot of, you know, the Chewies of the world and Petcos and PetSmarts, and you don't necessarily find that, you know, it's just, you just kind of, it's a product to them. It's not, well, how's your dog, that kind of thing. So obviously is that what you credit, aside not just the customer service of the people, but just your whole, I guess, methodology in terms of your company? That what you credit your retention to? Because you are maintaining your customers.
It's definitely a big portion of it. I think, you know, we take a very like holistic view to retention. I mean, it could be even, and I don't know how many people look at it like this, but even the marketing messaging used to get you to sign up in the first place, if we didn't send the right message, might not retain, right? Make sure that the portions are right, that the recipes are right. We just want to make sure that you know that we're here and we care about you, and then anything that we could do to get better, we're constantly asking for feedback.
And also, I mean, with acquisitions costs, they're rising. It's, you know, the glut of D2C spending.
Yeah.
Has that changed your media plan or your acquisition planning?
Well, you know, I think it kind of goes back to the same thing. There's no question that the prices have gone up. CAC, I think, kind of across the board for every company has risen. So for us, you know, we're always trying to test and optimize and get smarter and smarter and test all new channels and go to the channels that companies are moving away from. Like, I mean, television kind of had a little bit of a slump. I think people are going to start to go back to it. But again, I think the most important thing, no matter how much you spend on a customer, if you're not retaining them, what's the point of going out and buying more new ones? So for us, it really is all about retention. We try to get our marketing spend to be as optimized and as smart as we possibly can get it. But even more importantly, we want our retention to be 100%. And then you could spend a lot more money on a customer.
Well, they even say keeping which I'm getting the nod from Steve, but just keeping your existing customers is a lot less expensive than trying to bring in new ones, but then that will then in turn, if they're happy, they'll help bring in the new ones. So
yeah, exactly. The
it's a great way to
community
go.
is like how we grow. Like it's a really unbelievable channel for us. Just our customers being really happy, telling each other. We have a lot of vets that feed their dogs our food.
That's a big
what a
endorsement.
great recommendation. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's great. Well, now I think Steve's going to open it up.
Questions for Brett? Brett, since you mentioned that you take a holistic view of retention, can you tell us, but how are you measuring the pain points for your customers and understanding what are the points where you lose them or the things you really need to shore up? Are there any metrics behind this? Are there any analytics to help point you into where you really need to be most supportive of customers in order to keep them?
Yeah, well, for one, we look at our customer experience tickets. We really try to understand what people are reaching out about. When anybody churns, we ask them a series of questions to understand why they left. I think a really key insight that we've learned along the way is the difference between hearing your customers and listening to your customers. Too often, I think companies will hear feedback from their customers and take it directly. And for instance, hey, I want you to change something about your packaging, and then you change that thing about your packaging instead of trying to read between the lines and understand what is this customer really saying, what is bothering this customer, and how can I come up with a more creative solution that's actually better for the business, that's sustainable for our business, that really makes sense, and that will also make their experience better. Because we've had customers, for instance, that will ask us to change something about our packaging to something specific, but they don't realize that if we changed it, it actually would be a way worse experience. At first glance, it seems like the best solution, but you need to essentially read between the lines. It's also, I think I hear people use the phrase data-driven. That's not something that we do. We're data-guided. We allow the data to inform us. We don't let it drive every decision that we make.
How have you, as you've been expanding into all of these other things, and I just saw my first Farmer's Dog TV ad the other day, I'm curious about how it's impacted churn and retention. Are there particular channels like TV that that are not delivering the same quality or value of customer as before? What are you experiencing as you're going into things like podcasting, TV, even direct mail?
I actually don't know yet with TV. It's been a short amount of time since we started. I actually still have not seen one of my own commercials on TV, which is pretty heartbreaking. But yeah, I mean, in terms of in each channel, we'll kind of hold on to that cohort and keep an eye on them for several months out. But interestingly enough, like most of our marketing, like most of our like big spending, only really started maybe at the beginning of the summer. Before that, it was Facebook, a lot of partnerships. We did influencers, a lot of affiliate, but like the big media mix that we're working with now is quite new, actually.
Hi, Brett. Sean from Zenny. I actually became aware of your brand when I was looking to take over your space at the Showfields store in New York, probably 5-6 months ago. So kudos, a great build out. I don't know how interested you are, how attentive you are to the marketing spend specifically, but that one was very interesting to me because I totally new brand. I don't own a dog, but was curious about the retail experience there. I know it was a long-term investment. I loved the window type of placements you had there, and just curious about the retail component of the business and how important that might be to you guys moving forward.
Yeah, well, when we decided to do that, we were in this like pre-transitional phase of the company. We had just raised our B. We had a lot of theories as to where the company can come to life that makes sense. I mean, some companies do events to come just to like show up in real life. Not really a big fan of like events unless it's like done really, really well. But sometimes you don't really get anything out of it. Showfields for us, for those of you who don't know, it's like imagine like a mall that's like about the size of this room where there's these little nooks for each company, and it's all pretty much direct-to-consumer startups. For us, the thing that we were really testing was there was that one location available on the corner of Bond and Lafayette that there was a window, and we wanted to test what happens when we are on a New York City street with the window. So we had the screen, and it was cool. And every month we tested something new. So one month we did treats. We don't sell treats, but we did treats only in that location. So it was a great way to drive some of our customers from the neighborhood to go, see us in real life. That worked actually amazingly. We tested what happens when we sell sample packs, which is something that we've never done before, and that was interesting. For us, yeah, it was really we wanted to just test a few theories that we had. I don't think that for us, I don't think it was the perfect way to do it. I would have preferred having our own location. I think there's just kind of like a credibility difference when you're like in almost it's like a glorified flea market over your own retail store. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
I have a closing question that compares you directly to Purina, because I asked this question of Purina a number of years ago on a call prepping for a presentation. And it's about how you profile people online and who your real target is. So when you're in Facebook, I'd like to know who your target is, because when I was on the phone a number of years ago with Purina, they said there was one key data point that they asked of their customers, and it told them everything they needed to know, or at least most of what they needed to know about their customer. And is, does your pet sleep with you? They said, if your pet sleeps with you, your value to them in terms of the amount that you'll spend with Purina is exponentially higher than someone who owns a pet that doesn't sleep with them. So I'm curious for you, and we saw the kind of profiling you do when you enter them, but when you're prospecting on Facebook and elsewhere, what are some of the key data points or the key demographics that you're aiming at?
Well, it's interesting because I know there's like a lot of talk of like personas. We've taken a different approach. We kind of go the opposite way. Instead of kind of going based off our own logic, like this is what we think a pet person that loves their dog a lot would do. Let's just kind of let everybody know what we're doing and see what comes back to us, and let a persona be created. It's really interesting. So I've spoken to a lot of like pet industry consultants, like, you know, the execs over at Purina. I mean, you name it. We've spoken to a lot of these people, and I've came to the realization that I'm like the anti-pet industry guy because I disagree with so much that they say. I think that generally, I mean, when I speak to people and they'll say, you know, your customer is the person who puts their dog in a Halloween costume. They're wearing cashmere sweaters and, you know, studs around their collar. And I think that is a part of our customer segment. When I think of who our customer is, I think the person their dog is not feeling well, they're just acting a little lethargic. If you're the type of person that will bring your dog to the vet in that scenario versus, let them tough it out. We'll see what happens in a few days. That's the distinguishing factor. Not whether you're gonna sleep, not whether the dog will sleep in your bed, which is something that I'm very happy that Purina thinks, because they're going way too niche with their targeting. So I have two Rottweilers. There's just no way they could both sleep in my bed with me. And I'm the craziest lunatic when it comes to dogs.
Brett and Lisa, thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Thank you, guys.
We're going to move from a kitchen startup.
Wait. Hey, Steve,
Oh,
wait.
I'm sorry,
Wait.
John. We're going to move
No, wait.
to announcements.
I want to give
The
Brett.
voice of John.
I want to give Brett the chance to give the gift.
Oh,
The gift.
I appreciate that.
Just,
What do
you
we
know,
got?
Yeah.
not that I want to hold you to something that you said, but you did say you were going to give a
really,
gift.
I'm so happy you said that.
You're welcome, sir.
I should have said it earlier.
Go ahead. Take it away. Give him 1 minute.
So for those of you who have dogs, like dogs, have a friend with a dog, if you go to thefarmersdog.com/Brett, thefarmersdog.com/BRETT, you will get a free box. So you could use it for your dog. You can give it to your friend's dog. And it's honestly unlimited, so just don't scam us. But you can give it to everybody.
I'm actually just doing it for a free meal because I'm hungry. I'm eating it, so.
It's human grade. It'll be safe.
Thanks, brother.
thank you,
a lot.
Brett.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Brett.
much.
Big round for Brett.
So, Bob, that just really set the bar high for you. Are we all going to get kid carriers? We're going to change gear radically from a kitchen startup to a multi-brand, multi-billion-dollar company that is moving in the direction of D2C. This is actually going to be part of Bob Land from Durrell Industries is actually going to be part of a pod that we have here that's talking about product development. We're going to have presentations from Bob and Uli, and then we're going to have a panel that talks about generating product. Bob Land is the VP of Consumer Engagement at Durrell Juvenile. He's going to talk about a multi-year project that they're on to take a large legacy brand and start moving and create a D2C channel in it. That's his job at Durrell. So please welcome Bob Land.
Thanks. Yep. So, good morning, everyone. Excuse me. Again, I'm Bob Land. I'm a part of a 10-person executive team at Durrell Juvenile, and I've condensed a 100-page deck into 15. So I have only 15 minutes with you guys. So first, I just do a quick context. This is me in 1974. That's not me. That was the only picture I could find because all of mine had food on my face. But I was in the Navy for a little bit where they gave me a secret clearance, but I started getting really digital. And then that's just proof that in '95, like we all dressed like Steve Jobs. We all had the round glasses and the sweater and stuff like that. So I've been doing this for e-commerce and digital marketing in one form or another for about 25 years now, launching CVS.com in '99 or 2000, which is hilarious, launching a .com at a company that really doesn't care. We're a D store, like their lowest level store, so we weren't even invited to the meetings, which is kind of fun. I'm a professor of e-commerce at Dean in my local town. I worked for many years at Polaroid, so I use all these pieces of context. So Polaroid was an interesting one that we actually had a digital business, and we, sales-wise, had the most digital cameras by sales in the world at the time. It was internal that we couldn't walk away from film that we made 70 points of margin on to digital where we had single points of margin. The company just couldn't pivot in time. Also, Everest Poker, which is a company that we sold when poker was hot to the Principality of Monaco, which is a whole other different story. Also, like lids.com launched the online program, and we had about 25 stores and grew it to about 400 stores. If anyone's a ball cap fan like I am, we had a lot of good times at Lids. So that's kind of the context, big companies. There's also 6 startup companies that are on there, that are not on there, that I kind of do in between. So my whole role has been to just, I look at it as like I make people rich, whether they're big or small. I'm kind of the guy that comes in and just changes everything, kicks over the apple carts and starts completely new things, starts a shadow IT group, that kind of thing. So has anyone heard of Durrell before today? A couple of people. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. A few people. There's a lot of Durrells out there. So these are typically privately held, even though, so we are private, owned by a family. But some of these companies are $2 billion to $10 billion you've never heard of before, but you've really heard of their brands. We're split up into 3 divisions. And our brands you probably do recognize. So this is about half of the list. So it's an interesting mix of baby gear, bikes, and furniture, right? So what's really difficult for me is it goes from opening price point products to premium products, right? So in a brand like Safety First, we're selling, 2-cent outlet protectors for your house, little plastic bits, all the way up to, $15,000 and $20,000 carbon fiber bikes. So it's a hell of a wide range. Kid Tracks is my favorite out of all of them. Those are little ride-on little things for kids. So today I'm only going to focus on Maxi-Cosi, but my lens is all the brands, right? So how do I do what I'm going to show you today for Maxi-Cosi and really have all these brands benefit, right? How can they all be part of the consumer journey? Because they are. If you think about all these brands, they've touched you in kind of different areas of your life, either when you have a baby and you're buying car seats, but when those kids need their first bike, maybe they're 4, 5, 6 years old. Why can't I send you a great offer for your kid's first Schwinn bike? That kind of thing, and then get you all the way through our GT and Cannondale lines, sell you furniture for your dorm room or for your first apartment, and kind of complete the cycle too. So that's the lens, but we're going to focus on Maxi-Cosi. Has anyone heard of the Maxi-Cosi brand in here? A few people, okay. It's only like 25% awareness in the US, which is really interesting. It's kind of our challenge. It's the #1 car seat brand in the world, but it's mostly in Europe. They have a 70% market share in Europe. They call car seats Maxi-Cosis in Europe. So that's a challenge. And our Dutch leadership there are always saying, why aren't you pushing more Maxi-Cosi car seats? And so we said, hold on. This is a bit of a journey for us. We just kind of inherited this brand. Probably a decade ago, we inherited this brand. And they just said, yeah, it'll just sell. Like, don't worry about it. It's awesome. If you've ever felt a Maxi-Cosi car seat, they're the softest car seats, super safe. They're beautiful. We do designer collections. Like, why wouldn't you buy this car seat? So our challenge here has been really distribution. It doesn't really fit for any kind of mass channel. It fit for Babies R Us, but Babies R Us went out of business, which was also a challenge. So oddly, for this whole transformation, we started with e-commerce. We started with our Amazon business. We were only doing like $5 million. I came to the company in 6 years ago, and we first brought in a new CEO who changed out half the executive team. That's kind of like the first move, right? And then we just started building from there. We built the Amazon business as a corporation to well over $200 million. So it's kind of like we took everything we learned there and we used the money to self-fund D2C. So now that kind of plate is spinning. Then we actually, it seems like we're just being delayed, right? We stop and build a whole e-commerce business meaning like all the back-end systems, the logistics, revamping our warehouses, really modernizing everything. Then since e-commerce is very difficult to forecast, and Amazon's an interesting partner, and so is Walmart, we had to form marketplaces, really to deal with all the excess inventory. And so now that's a $15 million little kind of outlet. So we look at marketplaces as kind of letting out the steam out of the business, and now we can do D2C. So we've got all kind of the pieces in place in order to build this. Maxi-Cosi is now the first brand to be the real recipient a lot of all these new changes. So the big one is we used to market to babies. Like every photo that we would have online would be really cute babies. And everyone reacts well to babies. So we had tons and tons of cute ones on there. But really, it's a sea of, it's a sea of babies compared to all of our competitors, which is it's fun, it's nice, but it really doesn't differentiate. Just a couple months ago, we brought in a new digital agency. We've never had a digital agency. We brought in a creative agency. We've never had a creative agency before. And really, we're marketing towards parents and really helping them out. All of our products really just help the parent out. Like the baby will be fine, but really it's parents wondering, is their life going to completely change? It is, but it doesn't really have to be. It doesn't have to be as bad as some of their friends have told us. So if you want, I encourage you to go to maxicozy.com and look at the video on the homepage. It's brand new work. It's our first pass, but it is really focused on just parenting, just the act of parenting. We love it. So I'm going to show you a little bit of behind the scenes. So I bet that there's some software up here that you guys probably haven't seen, but this is kind of my pathway through the giant Lumascapes that are out there, right? Some of them are legacy systems that I just have to deal with. Like Oracle is the bane of my existence. It goes against every software purchasing decision that I've ever made. I think only because it's 3 versions old. Like the corporation has never spent time to do the proper upgrades, and now we're kind of in a difficult position. But everything up there has an API, so that's one of the things I look for. Everything talks to each other, right? So I can pull out any one of them as I find a different vendor and plug them back in. I'm responsible for the first 3 circles, so e-commerce sales, whether that's D2C or retailers, all our digital marketing, and then consumer care. And so I insisted on that piece because, to me, that's where brands are built these days. So anything that I do in e-commerce and digital marketing and new products comes from insights from consumer care. So what I'm doing now is tying it all together. Does anyone either have a CDP or is in the market for one in here? Ooh. So CDPs are kind of the next level CRM systems, kind of like on steroids, where I can take input from anywhere out there, all of my social websites, my consumer care business, really anywhere, ingest it into the system, and then it's like a trigger or drip marketing system that is really, really tuned. It is really going to be the thing that we grow with and how we expand using some machine learning like across all the rest of the brands. This is the journey. So has anyone heard of Salsify in here? Oh, a few more Salsify users. We were their 3rd customer. I didn't know we were the 3rd customer. I thought we were like their 15th customer or so. But the founders were really slick, and so we were their first. Really, that is 2014 when we all kind of arrived. Is just get the product data in order. If you flip this order, it's really, really difficult to produce anything. So once we got the product information in order, now we can produce websites, landing pages, anything, really super easily. But then you see at the bottom is Jira. The company didn't have a product management system. So as you can kind of see the list progress, we've got omni-channel software. BlueVen is the CDP vendor that we've just chosen out at the end, where we're weaponizing the data. But what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is I'm just going to focus on Clarabridge. Does anyone use Clarabridge in here? Or has been part of your vendor searches at all? Clarabridge is really in a very cool space. But which space is it? I don't think we really know. They're in 4 Forrester waves. So are they a customer feedback management platform, an AI-based text analytics platform, AI-fueled speech analytics solution, or a social suite? I don't know. I don't think we really even looked at that. But let's see. All we know is it ingests all this information, right? All of my emails from the call center, chat transcriptions, all the online feedback. So every review that we have out there, we have tens of thousands of reviews. Anything that we have internally, we have multiple consumer data warehouses. We just released our first Internet of Things baby monitor that has its own consumer database. So individual databases like that all come back into this one system. And it's not just our data, it's all of our competitors' data. So it's a massive amount of data coming back in. But I'll show you what it does and then what the output is. So it matches our structured data, right? That's the stuff we know, name, address, and age maybe, age of babies, like that kind of thing. With the unstructured data, the things that that person might be saying online if they're logged in, and it takes these verbatims, so these little sentences, and starts breaking it up for us, right? So no more word clouds, right? Because that was very difficult for us to ingest as a product team. It could be the word fit, and it could be in red. We say, all right, fit is a problem. What's going on with fit? But for car seats, is it the fit of the car seat in the car or the fit of the baby in the car seat? So it really wasn't direct enough for us. And what we needed to know was the context. So this is the context. This one sentence has a couple different pieces in it, right? Phone service is good, but the website's very frustrating. So I know I have to parse that out in different pieces, right? Service good, frustrating website, right? And kind of it helps me start parsing it out. This piece is now taking all of the unstructured data and adding structure, right? We stick it all into envelopes, these little folders everywhere. And this is stuff that probably has taken us the most time to do. This is all product managers, customer service people. Most of these systems take a lot of work up front, whether it's Salsify or really any of these systems. To stand them up is a lot of work, but I'll show you the benefit of that we're now seeing. This whole idea of using machine learning and humans is my model. That's the only model that I'll go with and buy any of our software, right? I don't believe in just turning on chatbots. We tried that a little bit. Salesforce has one. And it works a heck of a lot better when you have a human interfacing with it and tuning it. There's a company called Interactions. Does anyone know Interactions in here? That'd be interesting. No. They're one of the leading call center automation software companies out there. And they have a center that you could visit that has screens, and they have students, actually from Dean College, sitting in the room, and you hear these verbatims come in from their call center. They do Hilton, they do a lot of big hotel chains. And the kids take Spanglish and all these other like sentence fragments, and they map them all. And then the machine learns over time. If it's been mapped a few times, now the machine knows. So that's the interesting model. The output, we have voice of consumer dashboards for us on the executive team, so everything gets surfaced to the executive team. We have monitors all around the company, cafeterias, so everybody has a read on what's happening in the company. And then the bit of the output that's been amazing is the Magellan car seat. This is like a grounds-up development. The best car seat goes from like 5-pound kid to a 100-pound kid. The first IoT monitor, like the best in the industry. And strollers like this that might look normal, just like any other stroller, but it's built from 100% recycled bottles. Because we're already ahead of that whole thing. There's a lot of baby gear in the landfills, and we're already ahead of that. So after we launch these products, the feedback cycle, this is like our canary in the coal mine. As you can see, this starts with a kind of a word cloud. Canopy on this infant seat might be difficult. So we look at this and we say, wow, the red are all the complaints coming in. The blue is the production. Does anyone know what an andon cord is? From like old, like Toyota manufacturing, right? It's still like alive today. Amazon is keeping it alive, and so is Dell Computer. But anyone can pull an andon cord and say, stop the line, which we've never done before. We make a running change, and then as you see, the red just all goes away. So the last note here is I want to just talk about, it's not just about the product, it's product plus services. So if you buy a baby car seat, we wrap it in services now. One of our top calls was how do I install this car seat? It was an hour-long call. We do tens of thousands of them because that's the tough part, right? Installing it in your car seat. And we said, well, why don't we just see if they have a phone and we'll just do FaceTime with them? So we started it about a year ago. We keep it a private service. It's like an escalation. You call in And then we say, okay, the best thing to do is we'll get that car seat, call us back in 15 minutes, and we'll do a session. So we're literally looking over the parent's shoulder and seeing if they install the car seat. And we've done like 20,000 of them, even though we haven't really advertised it. Salsify chat, that's where we are actually doing chat out on the retailer's websites. So they have one last question. Does this car seat go with this base, let's say? And now they can ask us directly out on the retailer's website. Partner services too. You get a car seat now, and we'll give you 2 free cleanings for the car seat. Just bring it to one of our partner locations. Or we'll give you a discount on all the accessories that go with that. And then the personalization part is really cool. And this is kind of like, we thought it was in only the land of native D2C brands, but it's really not. We do personalized notes out the door. Whenever you buy direct right now from maxicozy.com, someone will write a note to you. It's usually a note of kind of inspiration. We actually did this with the employees' kids one time that were hilarious. But you get this kind of whole experience now. And the bottom line is we're linking the consumer care database to the marketing database. Right? They're not separate at all. It's all kind of one thing. So we really, really get to know you, because that's the frustrating part, right? You've called us. Why are we sending you an email about the product that you had a problem with the same day? So all of that was disjointed, but it's all coming together now. And when it comes together, it all works. We've been Walmart's Omnichannel Supplier of the Year, which is a big deal considering how many suppliers they have. And we win tons of awards. This is good really for the internal teams, right? They get validation every day when they make customers happy, but this helps kind of on top of that. So that's all I have in my 10 minutes. So
Bob,
any
thank you so
questions?
much. Hold your questions for Bob.
Oh, right.
Because we're going to move from AI and machine learning to a very different set of inputs from traditional TV, but also traditional TV shopping TV, with another returning champion of ours, Uli Haslacher, who is the president and co-founder of Pour Moi Skincare. She's going to tell you quickly about the product, but also the unique channel she's using, not only to have built her brand, but also to use as a product development channel. Uli has been in the beauty and wellness business for a number of years, working with a number of startups and consulting some of the major wellness and beauty brands. She is the founder and president of Pour Moi. Uli, welcome back.
Hello. Good morning. I'm talking today about our new brand, and do I click the green button? Yeah. Forget everything you've ever been told about skincare. How you purchased your skincare since the 1950s has been based whether your skin is oily, dry, combination, or per age. I'm here to tell you this is not how it works. And it's not just me saying this, and it's not our clinicals showing it. This is medical research done in the last 15 years, pretty much in every research institution and university. And what we found, all of us, is how skin looks, the outer skin, the complexion that is visible, how it looks, how it feels, and how it ages. Does not depend on the skin type, does not depend on age. It mainly depends on the climate you are in. It's your humidity, it's your temperature, and it's your altitude, the atmospheric pressure. And then, of course, you have the climate stressor, UV light, pollution, everything else in addition. And this is very, very different than how skincare has been done before. We always thought in the 20th century, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that everything is driven by the dermis from inside the body. And when cancer research hit really a block in the 90s that we just really didn't advance anymore, we started to look at the body as a self-healing, self-repairing superpower. We changed our thinking in cancer research, and that included the skin, and we wanted to know why the first layer goes down in the defense against the UV light, and that's when we really learned that skin doesn't work as we thought it did. So we are the first and only brand that formulates per the climate you are in. When I looked into how can I protect this concept a little bit better, because I come out of the DI industry where the #1 thing are knockoffs. So I always think about how can we protect it. And so I looked into the IP, and to my shocking, I found out that in modern patent law in the last 150 years, the word climate has never been used in medicated and non-medicated skincare. So I tried something that is completely new for the skincare industry. I actually protected the application of applying skincare per the climate you are in and changing it when you change your climate due to season or travel. And I was, fighting is maybe the right word, with the US Patent Office in the last 7 years. And 3 weeks ago, I got the patent, to everybody's complete surprise. So we are literally also did something very, very unique in the patent space that has never been done before, because I have been involved in the last couple of years in, before I did Pour More, in really fast-growing brands, and it just has been so hard to make them sustainable, to make them profitable. And so you need a little time to really get consumer research anymore, because now I'm a grandma, so I want to take my time. So this is actually our new launch. This is the Marine Day Cream, the second one, and I've just only put this up because this is for cool temperature and high humidity. This is South Carolina right now. Because when it comes to useful skin, location means everything. So this is because we were forced in this fight with the patent office to actually launch in the market in a soft launch to really show how innovative the idea is, because it's not so much, of course, it's climate, but it's actually revolutionary when you're out of the skincare industry. So, and we had to show the patent office that we go out, independent organization like Mintel, would recognize us as a beauty disruptor. They would be immediately, the industry would immediately react to it, and thank God we were right about this. So then when we were already in the marketplace, we don't know what kind of claims we can make because we were still waiting for the patent. We couldn't really enter the US market, so I went to Canada, and I went on the shopping channel to start, hearing what are consumers, how fast can we sell, just learning about the product. And I'm not a, I'm not a talent, so I went on and, was selling it myself.
I'm going to give away the big $50 savings card this week. So please, by all means, comment on Facebook if you have a question. We have such a wonderful expert here in Uli. So if you'd like to comment, and then we'll pick a Facebook winner, and we'll be in touch very, very soon. But we did have a question. Who was it from, Leslie? And one of the gals, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Linda.
She wanted to know if this is just for the face, or can she use this elsewhere?
On your hands.
Okay.
Just like your face and your neck is exposed all the time, you don't have clothes going over it. The same thing is with the front or the top part of your hands. It's very similar to the skin you have in your face, so please use it also here.
I do a horrible job, and we still sell out every brand. Doesn't matter who is going on, Lancome or anything. We sell 3-4 times. We're selling more than any other skincare out there, because we literally have no competition. And it's so interesting to the consumer, and it makes so much sense that they get it. But I have to talk about it 10, 15 minutes, or now I talked about it for 5 minutes. And as you know, in digital media, you have 11 seconds to, let people know what you are selling. So we are not completely there yet. But I showed this time this clip because the last 2 times I was here, I haven't shown this clip yet. And it's about consumer feedback, and that's what I'm talking today about it. What we got out of the shopping network is a huge amount of consumer feedback to make our products better, which by us, what really surprised me was that, that our consumer really expects from us that we are more respectful to the environment and to our environmental footprint than any other brand out there. So we had to change our recyclable paper to 100% disposable paper, like farmer's stock. And we stopped every sampling because this is another piece of single-use plastic in the ocean, which is unacceptable. And as women know here, the #1 way of how selling skincare is to send you a sample. So we are doing it without a sample. We're kind of like the beard brand, that we are really truthful to what we are. And you know, if it's gonna take us longer to sell, well, we have a 20-year patent, so we have some time. And so no sampling, and you know, and in addition, what we have all done to make this a truthful brand. We are now changing completely the packaging because we finally got the patent, and before it was just more of a, staying in the market, and it will be a completely recyclable, package. We will actually pick it up by the consumer and put it to the recycling facility ourselves so they can ship it back to us, because recycling services are, in most of the cities, are actually not doing it anymore. So for the consumer to put it into their blue box will not help that this get recycled. So when it comes to us, we're making sure that this will never be in an ocean, it will never be in a landfill. So we got a lot of different data from it. But once what we found is, what are we doing with the feedback, I'll give you everything you want except the thing that you want. It is so hard to understand with all this information that you get, that you don't treat the symptoms, but that you get to the root of the problem. And because the consumer doesn't know how to communicate, they maybe say, it didn't feel well, like in our case with, the different texture. And in skincare, so you need to communicate to understand what is the problem, what can we make better of the product, what products the consumer really wants in addition, because the consumer doesn't know what's possible. They don't have the research, they don't have access to the technology. So, it's that fine balance to figure out what you want to do. So I'm going to try to rush through this. So what we learned from the shopping channel is that we started to go into the local markets in the US, and I call it the low-hanging fruit. So we went to extreme climate, Tucson, Denver. Denver is the wrinkle city of the United States. Is anybody from Denver? Because you're over 5,000 feet, you have altitude. And altitude is because of the thin air, ages you so much faster than anything else, because the skin, the outer skin, literally cannot hold on the water because the molecules of the water are too much spread out. So, and we literally developed the first high altitude solution for your skin that it's actually able to hold on. So we went with scripts into these little markets. I went on, did the same thing, just talked about it. And it was so incredible successful that Scripps came back and said, we had so many people call into the station, because it's almost like a service, like, your local weather, your local traffic, and now we have like a solution that is really geomoisturization. It's local. So Scripps proposed to us doing our own little TV show and try it, and it's called Beauty Forecast. I have to say that when I started out with climate-specific, climate-based skincare, that everything was available. From Beauty Forecast, Forecast Beauty, anything weather-related, skin-related, climate-related has been actually never been used, so we protected all of it. And this is now a little TV show, and I show it real quick, and it does incredibly well. It runs every Friday in Tucson.
Pour Moi is the world's first climate-smart skincare that actually works differently than other types. So it formulates not only per skin type, but for the climate. It's called geomoisturization. They base their approach on the latest clinical studies that show that skin significantly changes its functions to adapt to the climate that you're in and actually defend itself against those climate stressors, they call them. So here in Tucson, it's that very dry air and, of course, the aggressive UV.
It is drier than Phoenix, even, like I said. The recommended moisturizer for us here in Tucson is the Mountain Day Day Cream. This is the must-have moisturizer. Tucson is about 2,500 feet, and when the air is already dry, it gets thinner. It feels like you're standing on a high mountain peak. Well, this is specifically designed to keep your skin hydrated in these really challenging climate conditions all day, and it promotes peak performance and skin's own ability to repair and actually renew itself. This moisturizer has become such a big hit with a lot of people that people are talking about it already.
It's amazing. It's like technology for your skin. So here's a video we're going to show you.
It has done incredibly well. I started to invite other companies too to be part in our beauty forecast. So now we have a lipstick that is changing to the desert to the desert look. It's a very successful product on QVC in the lipstick area. It's not from us. And so we're doing the beauty forecast of doing beauty products to you know, that are for the location where you're living in, and trying to raise also awareness that, you know, you should eat what's in, you know, like the local transportation is also, you know, terrible for what's happening with the climate. I'm convinced that in the next 10 years we will see such a change in behavior, kind of like smoking. You know, in the 80s, everybody was smoking. Now, you know, hardly anybody smokes, completely changed behavior. So we took all of this, and now we are starting our media, our digital marketing campaign. We are going into digital now as we are cutting it down, and it seems like my digital plan is MediaPost. I get always new parts to it when I come here. And we are starting now very little. So we did, and Steve from Jebit, when I was back in Austin, he said, hey, I can help you to bring this all into a quiz, and so you can educate, you can do well. And I think we launched it in July with our little website. And the quiz goes through. So, you know, what is the weather out there? And it picks mild. Then I educate them. There's two kinds of, you know, mild climate. It has humid. Voila, this is your antidote. So people that come to our website, 30% take the quiz. Out of the 30%, 85% are coming to a landing page. And from the landing page, they go out and they buy 4 to 7 items. Not just one, 4 to 7 items. This 20-second quiz convinces them that this is really a complete new way to shop. And we did not think that we would get multiple product sales out of it. That was a complete new learning. And, you know, so this came all out from feedback from the shopping channel of what the customer really wants to know. They want to know what climate is right for me. How do I do this? So that's it.
Uli,
thank you.
every time you come back, you've got a new piece to the story. Thank you so much. Stay right there. I'm going, and by the way, if you're interested in the shopping channel, Uli is an expert. She's going to hold a roundtable on the topic at the end of the morning. But for now, let's drill deeper into the product development topic. Let me ask Ricky and Laura to come up and join Bob on stage. Product development is, of course, an integral part for many of you D2C brands in deepening your relationships and extending lifetime value with customers, but it is challenging on every level to know which product to develop, what sort of feedback loop to use with your customer base, how to test with your customer base, and whether you have legitimacy in new branding and product areas. So to take the lead on this panel, we have someone who is at one of the largest of the multinational CPGs, Georgia Pacific, Ricky Busby, who's the brand building leader of new ventures at Georgia Pacific. He works with the internal startups at the company and has led a lot of the e-commerce and digital marketing efforts for brands like Quilted Northern and Brawny. Please welcome Ricky and our panel.
Good morning, everybody. Looking forward to the time here today. I want to give the chance to introduce the rest of the panel. So, Laura, if you want to introduce yourself and your role, since everyone's gotten a chance to meet Uli and Bob.
Sure. I'm Laura Fiatoa. I work at Helix Sleep. We are a bed-in-the-box company that offers a personalized solution to give everybody literally the best sleep that they can. We also have a sister brand called Birch, which is all focused on organic and natural sleep products, and also a weighted blanket.
I'm going to skip mine because everything is running late.
I'm going to skip mine too. Fantastic. So as we all know and have heard from our speakers today, marketing and innovation and product development, they rely on a blend of art and science. And as we were getting ready for this panel here, what was interesting to me is, and what stood out, is the way in which each of y'all have approached that. Some leaning more heavily on the data side, some kind of taking those data and kind of bringing in the art and the human element. And so, Laura, if you want to kind of begin by speaking to the way in which y'all have used that blend between art and science.
Yeah, I think that Farmer's Dog has a really interesting approach of using data to guide them to make decisions. And, you know, there's a lot of science behind sleep, and we're all a bunch of nerds over at Helix, so we love to dig into, you know, what are the nuances that help every person sleep the best that they can individually. We took all of that information that we had in this very scientific approach to our product development and realized that there's also other opportunities out here that people not only want to sleep really well, but they also have concerns about the environment, and they also want to make sure that they're getting products that are sustainably sourced and they're trying to be carbon neutral. Now, they might not be able to do everything under the sun to be, you know, neutral in all of their purchasing, but when it comes to their sleep and where you rest your head for 8 hours every single day, they want to make sure they're making the best decision. So we took all the learnings from Helix while receiving a lot of customer feedback in regards to what are our textiles made out of, how are we getting our products for Helix, and noticed that there was an opportunity to really own a smaller white space within the same vertical, and that's how we really look to own for Birch Living.
Great. Now, Uli, you have kind of alluded to that in your previous conversation in the way in which you've married up that data, some of which you got from the shopping network. I don't know if there's anything else you want to build and add on to that.
The advantage to go on the shopping network, QVC, I've worked since the 90s, is today, 2019, the third largest e-commerce platform in the United States. Only Amazon and Walmart are larger. If you go on air, like one, you know, of their top skincare brand, they sell about $25,000 a minute. They go on for 3 hours, $4.5 million a day. I don't think a lot of companies can do that quickly. That's how an IT cosmetic, you know, rises up to $250 million in, you know, 3 years on the shopping network. But it's also driving really fast on e-commerce, but the consumer is really taught to interact, to give, you know, feedback to it. So you get so much more generous feedback from the consumer on the shopping channel. They write in on Facebook, they call in while you are there, they leave reviews, and they are very critical. This is your woman 35 to 65, and you know, she tells you what she wants and what she's upset about.
Now, Bob, you mentioned in your presentation, you kind of talked about some of the vast amounts of data, and we all know that we've got more and more data coming at us, and ingesting that and understanding it can be difficult, really being able to differentiate between the signal and the noise. Can you talk about how you know when you've uncovered a trend or an actionable insight from that data?
Yeah, I have a big one so what's interesting in the baby industry is that people are having less babies. And we have less retail partners to ship it out. So there's a lot of factors going on. But you know, the fact that people are making less babies, we trace down to apparently there aren't enough people drinking tequila. It's really interesting. It's a correlation right now. No. Probably the most difficult piece is when your team has uncovered something and they don't know it yet. So, you know, my teams expand and contract all the time because of what I do. I work across the silos. And it's tough to see something in the data and go, oh my God, it's right there. Why don't you do something with that? And then you say, wow, now it's turned into some kind of game show where I have to talk, you know, because you're coaching the team to try and find the insight. Otherwise, they have to kind of be bloodhounds with this kind of thing. So, yeah, I would say that's probably going to lead to our cultural question as well. It's, you know, the people side of the data.
So once your team has uncovered that actionable insight or opportunity area, the real planning starts to begin. And so one of the themes of this conference is that shift from solely growth focused to that more sustainability focused, and kind of the role of profitability in building sustainable businesses. As a startup, that can sometimes be especially challenging, as we've heard from many of the speakers here. And Lar, can you speak to the changing role of profitability and how y'all have thought about that as you've expanded and grown?
Yeah, I think it's no surprise to anyone. I mean, we've all seen the WeWorks and Ubers of the world kind of coming to call with their spending habits and losses that they've seen. And now that we are able to see all of these like financial records, you really do have to take a hard step back and just be like, what is growth? At Helix, we're always trying to grow, but we're trying to do it in a way that not only makes sense for our bottom line, but also allows us to ensure that there's a continuity with how we look at our customers themselves. I think that anybody can grow if you throw money into the market, but the true value that a company can bring is if they don't do it by overspending on marketing, but they look at the incrementality and what's that next marginal dollar that can be best spent against whatever channel you're in, if it's Facebook or if it's affiliate. So I think that looking at profitability as opposed to just year-over-year revenue growth has really shifted our marketing mix and made us probably even immeasurably more critical of how our media is working and putting that back on the partners and creating better relationships with them to set up testing and understanding, the lift that's happening to understand that next best dollar.
Well, skincare product development is very difficult. If you really do a new kind of skincare that we have, so this is not private labeling. We don't take an existing skincare and just drop in, whatever the hero ingredient is, and so we turn this around in 6 months. Ours takes 2 to 3 years because all the clinical studies has to be done, and the whole process and that's fast, 2 to 3 years. And it's very expensive for a startup company. So we got a good idea now what's going to be the next wave of new products in our space. We also try to be innovative, so not doing what everybody else is doing already. I think it's a big part of who we are. Product development, as I said, I give you everything you want except the thing that you want, is very, very difficult to predict where now things are changing so rapidly, and consumer taste and from the politics and what influences that decisions of the consumer. It's 2 years ago was different than it is today. So having this long product cycle is a very risky thing to make any prediction. You have to do a lot of instincts that goes with it.
When speaking of instincts, sometimes when you get the data, it can tell you you have an opportunity and it's time to move forward, but at times it can also tell you what not to do. And Bob, you shared an example before the session with us about a time where the data told you you needed to stop doing it. Can you share that with us?
And that's the most difficult moment, because you've tried to coach an organization to stop being, stop relying on their maybe 20 to 30 years of product development expertise and just really look at the data, except in certain circumstances where data, I think Brett was saying earlier too, data is a guide. So you have to go, all the way and say, no, look at the data, look at the data, look at the data, except sometimes, and that's a difficult move kind of, backwards. But it saved us one time. We thought this one car seat called the Alpha Omega Elite, that was a platform of ours, very successful for 15 years. We said, wow, we're coming out with some of this new data in our new product development process. It's got a lot more features. Should we just change the name? And most of the people in the organization said, no, we have so much equity in that line of product. I mean, like, equity, that's an interesting word. So we looked into it. We actually ran it through Clarabridge, and the equity that we had in, basically millions and millions of car seats that were out there over the years was kind of negative, right? It wasn't the greatest car seat, but it was the most available. It was everywhere, right? But it was mostly negative. And really, that made us change the name, give us the courage or the permission to change the name to Grow and Go. So if you look out there now, it's one of those product lines that has gone from $0 to $100 million. I don't know if it's just because we changed the name. It was more of a point that the organization had to let go. And we have a lot of those.
It's great. So in our to end the panel, I want to have each of you speak about the role of culture. So as we look out here across the audience, there's a wide mix of people from startups to kind of legacy brands, large corporations. And one of the key differences sometimes between those two is the role of culture and the way that they value and think about data. Not just the culture in terms of one gets to wear jeans and drink great coffee, and the rest of us in the corporate world don't get to do those things, but really how you value data and how you think about building culture and building those relationships internally. So if each of you want to take a few minutes and just talk about the role of culture within your company.
I can go first. I think that, you know, the benefits that we all have at smaller D2C startups, it's very much we can play fast and loose. I think that because of the ability to make quick decisions and having our teams working so closely together has specifically helped us at Helix, because we are a very tight-knit and we're a smaller company. We're able to like shout over to somebody, you know, from the table across from them that's on the product team doing something completely different than what our dev team is doing. And these communications help us to make very fast but critical decisions that happen, you know, every single day, even from the smallest optimizations from landing pages, because a customer was very confused on her journey, and we were able to create an A/B test using VWO, you know, that day. And I think that because we were able to make those kind of very quick decisions, and we are a smaller company, it's really founded on that idea of culture and making sure that everyone's honest and open and accountable, and it gives it like a safe space, so to say, for ideas to really flow freely.
I think that the culture is extremely important. So it depends on what, you know, and I think there's the official culture, and then there's the unofficial culture, which kind of goes into politics, you know, within the different divisions that want to promote and not, you know, want to help or not being helpful, and they show it or not show it. So I think that culture is literally where it comes down to in an organization, you know, how it's going to be executed. And I think it's very, very complicated. I think that culture, corporate culture today, is the most interesting thing, because we haven't addressed it. It's not HR or anything else, and so it goes really into the different division. And so definitely data and everything that, you know, promotes a change or a new product development. There's so many different parts of the company that has to come together. So culture is very important. You know, at our last MediaPost in Lake Tahoe, the lady who spoke for, you know, avocados from Mexico, she actually said that they made an extreme change. They completely outsourced because of the culture. You know, she came out of companies where the culture was always a problem, could never be fixed, and so she outsourced everything.
Does anyone know the rule of 150 in a company, right? It's kind of that moment where, you know, your startup company, you know, has 150 employees, and 150 is the point where you kind of know them all. You might know all of their names, at least know their face in a name, you know, that kind of thing. Once you go beyond 150, and people do it by building, that kind of thing, you have to really, really work on culture as part of the scale. Otherwise, you know, your culture won't scale. That whole, like, I just yell over to somebody in my cube and we're so nimble. You lose the nimble part, you lose a lot. And it's just a fact of life. That's why a lot of founders just bail out. They're like, I got 1,000 employees. I actually didn't want to, I left a 1,000-employee company to do this startup company, so I'm out of here. It just gets weird with politics and all that. What I've found is it has helped is some of the software that I showed up there, there's actually like 150 pieces of software that we introduced across the organization, platforms large and small. And what we didn't want to create was only have this kind of world of like early adopters that like were dying for changes, and then those guys adopt it, and then have everybody else just kind of left behind and saying, you know, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what my role is anymore. I'm not going to be offering up, you know, cost savings. I'm not going to tell anybody I'm keeping something on a spreadsheet, you know, that kind of thing. Is an LMS system. So a learning management system. We use Lessonly, real simple system, where we pull in, you know, a lot of the software has a great online university. We pull in the videos, we pull in some text. So they watch a quick video on a specific, let's say it's Salsify, specific subject, like how do I add a product to Salsify? And then they take like a 3 to 5 question quiz, and it kind of certifies them and makes them feel like they're part of the whole process, and it's self-paced, right? So some people learn in different ways. Some people you see, and you can see the results, you know, some people just race through and they're like, wow, you're like a Salsify expert in a week. Like, how did you do that? There's like 40 classes. Other people, you see them struggling a little bit, but those are the people you want to pull aside, and we could do one-on-ones and really kind of help them, because it's typically a hang-up that they still have. They're saying, well, the system won't do this, so I can't do that. And we said, well, let's work on that, you know. Or they say, oh, I've been trying to get that done for 5 years. Like, okay, let's really work on that. Or who are you asking about this? So if you dissect the problem, and you can see it, the problem just lift off the person's shoulders, and really that's like the only thing that was pulling them back.
Great. Well, I want to thank all of you for today, and turn it to the audience now for any questions that you may have.
We have time for questions.
I don't know if he sees you.
Oh, no, I don't. Where? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see.
Hi. So I think a common theme throughout all the sessions has been making data-driven decisions or data-guided decisions. And I think there may be times where, you know, you don't have, or limited data is available, and so you have to make a decision based on a bit of intuition. Obviously, it could be a new channel or it could be a new product, and it's something that you want to do tests after you launch. But when you're initially thinking about, you know, is this something that I even want to pursue? What are some of the things that you think about?
I've got a good one for that. We do the Jeff Bezos model. We take a lot of things from Jeff Bezos. So we're basically taken a lot of the lessons that he has used and baked into Amazon, and we just bake them into our own organization. So we have an Amazon organization, a mini one, that hits all the scorecards and all the things they track, we should have tracked anyway. So I think that part is interesting, but he has the 70% rule. If you're 70% sure, just go with it, you know? And people around the table can still disagree, and then they have the whole agree to disagree kind of piece, but you're still gonna do it. A lot of people get hung up because, oh, you know, Jimmy in sales doesn't like this. All right, Jimmy in sales, you know, it's fine, but we're pretty sure we want to go ahead and do this. We're going to. And then what we do is we pilot it really early without a lot of investment. And then the pilot speaks for itself. Like, look, it did work. You know what I mean? Like we said we can't ever bring all our products into one database. It's like, yeah, you can. So that's what we do. We do the 70%, I'm kind of sure, pretty sure. And it's on track, it's on mission. So we always knew we were going D2C with our brands. But where do we have to start? Back in the warehouses and do all the unsexy stuff first. And now, you know, 5, 6 years later, it's getting out to consumers.
For us, we look at comparable tests we've run. If there's really limited data, we look at similar channels, similar type of messaging. Somehow we can, you know, proxy or triangulate how would this possibly resonate. And then much to your point, again, like the benefit of being like nimble is being comfortable making 70% decisions with 100% of your money. You know what I mean? So I think that changing both the culture of saying even a failure is a lesson and proxying like projections and potential results with other channels has been our like biggest help for like podcasts, for example.
I look into it if it's a big decision that costs a lot of money and it's more risky, or if it's a small decision and costs little money. So if it's a little, then I go with, you know, we learn from our failures. That's the only way, try, and you know, how we really actually learn. And if it's very costly and I still feel strong about it, 70+%, I look how I can protect it. Do I do a licensing with it? So, you know, I have a little time to build it because after all, I want to be right. So, you know, I see how I can actually buy myself time to prove me right.
I also do the 70-20-10 rule, which is weird. I don't know if these are rules or observations, but 70-20-10 is how I budget each year. So I say there's 70% of the things that we've done this year that pretty reliable, whether it's, you know, our AMS spend, that I'm willing to say, all right, we spent $5 million on AMS this year. I'm willing to bet on that. We've really, really tuned that in. The whole team really understands the variability. They've done so much A/B tests. That's cool. That's 70% stuff we've done. 20% are things that we've tested this year that are in transition, right? We're kind of sure it's working, but we still have some more models to run or things to try. And then I have the 10% bucket, which is moonshot stuff, that's where I love. That's all my experiential marketing stuff. That's where I did a tiny house, and I gave it away on Mother's Day, and like crazy stuff like that. We're doing an influencer apartment in Manhattan, and like where's the crazy stuff coming from? And that's the 10% bucket. If that 10% grows, what I found, if it grows outside of that, you get into trouble. A lot of people asking questions. You have kind of more. You're playing more defense. So for whatever reason, that ratio seems to work.
Ricky, panel, thanks very much. We're going to extend this into a round table at the end of the morning. Thanks, everybody. So we'd like to welcome another one of our sponsors, Tatari, to talk about how one of the channels that D2C brands are really moving into much more aggressively, especially in the last 6 months, has been TV. Philip Engelbrecht, who is the CEO and co-founder of Tatari, is going to talk about how leading D2C brands use data to scale on TV. Please welcome Philip.
Thank you.
Give it up for Philip. Let's go. This guy.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. I'm incredibly happy to be here. I'm feeling the pressure because I'm standing between you and that shot of caffeine. I'm here to share some of our TV advertising expertise with you. If you don't know Tatari, we are a data and analytics company focused on the measurement and buying of TV advertising, and of course that's across both linear and streaming TV. We do so for quite a few companies. Some of them are actually here today, like Rowe, Gravity Blankets, The Farmer's Dog, we just saw Brett speak. The IAB actually published a list of what they see as the 250 most disruptive direct-to-consumer brands just a few months ago. And if you look at that list, of those who do TV advertising, almost half, if not more than half, actually work with us. So it's something we're very proud of. We know the direct-to-consumer space well, but we actually also work with some of the bigger brands. For example, even Procter & Gamble will have some small parts then of their business with us. Now, my hunch is that you've seen presentations around TV advertising in the past, maybe have sat into workshops, and if you pay attention, they always focus on the direct response performance of a campaign, the measurement of a campaign, metrics like cost per install, cost per sale, you name it. And so I kind of don't want to talk about that today. I want to take a different tack, and I kind of want to share some of our learnings and practices around scaling TV and even leading into the use of data and analytics to run a brand campaign, so something completely new. And here is why. This is what acquiring customers in a digital channel looks like. As your spend increases on the x-axis, your marginal cost, i.e. the cost to acquire one additional customer, goes up very quick, almost exponentially. That's particularly the case for companies that heavily rely on platforms like Facebook or Instagram. Facebook, for what it's worth, is really, really good at masking this cost pattern. They will report at the average, so it will look a whole lot more flatter. TV advertising fundamentally behaves differently. If something works on TV, let's say a particular network performs well, then you can reasonably expect to be able to spend quite a bit of money on it. So it's kind of, that's what it looks like for TV. By the way, I often get the question of where do these points intersect? And so my observation, albeit more anecdotal, is around $250,000. So if you're spending about $250,000 per month on Facebook and you're not on TV yet, then you got to pay attention because you probably should be on TV. Let me give you an example of this. This is one of our clients, Turo. Turo is a peer-to-peer car rental marketplace. It's kind of like an Airbnb for cars. It's fantastic. You just don't rent the average car. You can even kind of like rent exotic sports car on it, something I like to do. And so this is kind of the first few months that we worked with them. The blue bars are their monthly spend on TV, and then the green line is their CPI, so we want to bring that down. And so in the first few months, we kind of work hard, optimize on CPI. But then after that, we increase spend, as a matter of fact, double it, yet that CPI mostly stays flat. And so you could say, well, that's good luck. Well, I will say, no, that's a job well done. That's not coincidence. That's because we've been driving a very hard-fought optimization for scale. And to do so, we come kind of to the table with a whole slew of tactics and strategies that allow us to optimize a TV campaign, not just for performance, but actually for scale. We call it the science of scale. Some of them are listed here. I spoke about this last year, so I actually don't want to spend much time on it. I'm just going to put them out there. I'm just going to give you one, actually one of my favorite ones, which is a fractional test, right? Let's say you would like to scale your TV campaign on NFL. Well, purchasing a spot in-game on NFL will set you back a cool $200,000-$300,000. That's hardly something which we call a test for scale. That's too much money. So what we'll do instead is we'll buy a fraction of that audience. You can buy it in streaming. You can buy it on satellite, like DirecTV here. And so obviously, you're not going to get the whole audience. You may be just the DirecTV sliver of the country, which is maybe 10%. So you're going to pay less, but it's still going to yield enough data to actually suss out the performance of that potential true national big-scale airing. And so if it works for $15,000, dropping a cool $200,000 feels a lot more stomachable. Right? And so there's a whole bunch more. With sadness, I'm going to flip through these slides because they're my most beautiful slides. Here is the summary again. So there you have it. Take my word for it. But if you run an optimization for scale well, you can get to TV to a place where actually it will beat digital. And this is Turo again. And if I say beat digital, I mean both in the sense of running scale, right? The purple bars is TV spend, the blue bars are Facebook spend, so purple well above Facebook, but also in terms of performance. In this case, CPI, a lower CPI on TV, which is the red line, than we see on Facebook. So that's great, that's exactly what we want, but that's not where it ends. Once a company kind of has wrestled its way through these performance optimizations, through the scale optimizations, which I just talked about, brand optimization sits on the horizon. And this is probably the hardest step, because to truly harvest the TV beyond that direct response component, it requires that advertisers fundamentally change their buying strategy. They need to purchase airings or streamings which drive a much higher reach, a higher impact, for all intents and purposes, kind of more of those brand-like buys, because these investments are so much more than impressions. So I'll give you an example, or I'll demonstrate this with probably kind of the most extreme example, purchasing a spot on the Super Bowl, okay? If you buy 30 seconds during the Super Bowl, well, obviously, you're gonna get that 30 seconds, but you're also gonna get the opportunity to present your product or your service to the largest TV audience ever. And by the way, a very captive audience. Guys like me probably watch the Super Bowl more for the ads than the game, right? You get an opportunity to signal prestige, to signal quality, it drives memorability, and you also get that social amplifier weeks before the game and weeks after the game. If you layer in these types of buys and you do this consistently, ultimately, your company as a whole will start to perform better. And it's best demonstrated or best evidenced by an uptick in the blended sales conversion rate, which is kind of the yellow line that I show here. And I say blended. It's not just the sales conversion from TV, but it's the impact from TV on all your other channels. For example, your click-through rates on Facebook going up, certain keywords on Google that weren't profitable all of a sudden becoming profitable. It is the halo effect, it is the brand effect of TV kicking in. Now, when we do such types of brand optimizations, remarkably, we go back to some of the oldest metrics in the world of TV advertising, reach and frequency, but we're going to look at it through a digital lens. So here's an example from one of our other clients. This is Rothy's. They're a San Francisco-based shoe company. They sell very fashionable, stylish flats. I hear they're also very comfortable. And they're made out of recycled water bottles. Very cool. And so this is April of this year, just before we started their brand optimization. And what you can see here is the reach and frequency distribution just before. And so this was put together not using Nielsen data, but actually we use IP level data to do so. Before we commit to the brand buy, we actually use set-top box data, we use smart TV data, and we project where that reach and frequency histogram or curve will fall again. And of course, we want it to go up, right? So before we even do anything, we know that we're heading in the right direction. Even if the short-term metrics of making more expensive buys don't look so good, we know we're heading in the right direction. Now, I hammer on the concept of IP level data, because that's critical. If you are still confined to Nielsen data, and I don't mean to say anything bad here, but if you're still confined to data that's collected from a small household panel, and you need to calculate reach and frequency by looking at overlaps in such small household panels and looking at averages, you just don't have the right instrumentation. It's not going to work. And so to do reach and frequency optimizations in linear, we're going to look predominantly at smart TV, Vizio being the 800-pound gorilla. We use them. We're about to expand that data set to about 18 million devices. By the way, that's just linear TV. For streaming TV, it's even better. For every single impression in streaming delivered, we have the user agent or the full IP address and some other data. And so, of course, we get even a whole lot more precise. This is actually probably also a good segue to talk a little bit more about streaming. If I had been up here on stage, well, I was on stage here last year, but the way I described streaming last year was different from how I would describe it this year. Streaming was always kind of been perceived as a reach accessory. In particular, let's find the people who have cut the cord. And that still holds, but in my observation, 2019 has been the year where streaming has reached critical mass in terms of viewership. Streaming buys are now an absolutely equally good vehicle to drive your scale, to drive a meaningful amount of impressions and spend. The other thing I should point out is actually a lot of the streaming impressions are still going on TV. And so that's great. Now, like a good TV commercial, I have to say, but wait, there's more, right? Streaming TV is not just that additional reach, it's not just the newfound scale as of 2019, but if you kind of take a programmatic approach to it, it gives you so many other benefits that are digital in nature, right? The ability to target or hyper-target audiences, the ability to buy audiences across platform, the ability to run very complex creative strategies, right? And we have 50 different creatives all run at very particular times and instances. And so you can do all of that in a remarkable way while still holding on to that very first metric when you start a TV performance. I'm going to come back to Turo. This is their performance on Pluto, a streaming platform, where they get a CPI which was an order of magnitude below what they paid in other places. And so streaming is for real. So the conclusion, because I think I'm up on my 10 minutes. One, lead TV with data and analytics. I mean, if your board or CFO has fallen out of love with you, it's like makeup sex. I mean, this should be clear by now. The other thing, especially for people who start with TV advertising, I would say don't get too hung up in the attribution or the measurement. Scale is often more important, okay? And the third piece, I think you heard me loud and clear, as of this year, it's linear and streaming. And of course, streaming is the future for all the benefits that I briefly mentioned. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is it Philippe or Philip?
Philippe, but either way.
Philippe. All right. I think I said your name wrong. So, I'm sorry about that. But welcome back. Thanks for coming back. And we actually have a coffee and networking break right now that Philippe is going to sponsor also. So if you have any questions for this man, are you here solo or do you have a team with you?
I have two more people here, Victor and Skylar. There's Skylar, there's Victor.
Excellent.
They're much better looking than I am, so please talk to them.
No, thank you for this. This is great. And if you have questions for what you just saw, we're going to take a quick break and ask these guys. So please do. And big round of applause for Philippe. Thank you again. Great stuff. And we'll be back in about 10, 15 minutes. Take a break, and we'll see you shortly. Thanks.